5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, before we get to our guest, a couple of items that we haven't had a time to touch on. First of all, those passengers' remains from the Malaysian flight are being moved by train in refrigerated trains to appropriate quarters where relatives could finally, I guess, claim their loved ones. It's been way, way too long, obviously. And the black boxes reportedly going to be turned over to the authorities who are investigating the crash. They had been in the hands of the rebels and then taken to Russia, and I don't know where they are right now, but they're going back. John Kerry is reportedly on the ground in Egypt, where he'll be talking to the Egyptians and Hamas. I don't know if he's going to talk to Hamas about a ceasefire. There's a report that Hamas said, you want a ceasefire? Israel has to give us free electricity. That's just one cockamamie demand. Free electricity for Hamas. They're not quite in a position to make demands, I wouldn't think. Also, the Boston Marathon's friend, the bomber's friend, and we're talking about Dzhokhar Tarzanev's friend, whose name is Azmat Tazayakov. He was found guilty today of impeding the investigation into the bombing. He was charged with obstruction of justice and conspiracy. Prosecutors said that he had agreed with the friend's plan to move Tarzanev's backpack, which contained fireworks, from his dorm room a few days after the 2013 bombing of the Boston Marathon. So those are some of the issues that we haven't had a chance to get in depth into, although we have with Hamas and with the other aspects of Putin and the downing of the plane. And so now we're going to do that with actually Tom Borelli is up next, I do believe. Yeah, okay. Tom Borelli joins us, and Tom is going to talk to us about well, that's right, Chris Matthews. Watch.
Of racism in the Tea Party, going all the way back to when the study began in 2010, that there's definitely a racist strain, but it goes beyond racism. It goes to homophobia and xenophobia as well, Chris.
Well, let's talk about how they all fit together. You know, is it sort of a resumption of the old South, of the way things were before the Civil War, for example? When you get, is it like that old dreamy nostalgia you get in the old movies? Blacks were slaves, where the Mexicans were in Mexico. I mean, is this what they want?
That's precisely the case, Chris.
All right, folks, I don't even know what to call that kind of lunacy. Maybe we should just call it lunacy. But joining us right now is Tom Borelli, Senior Fellow at FreedomWorks. Tom, how are you, sir? Good to talk to you.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Okay, so the NAACP conference in Vegas focused on this kind of stuff and what they call voter suppression. Tell us about that.
Well, what's really crazy about what's going on in the conference, it's really intimidation what's going on with, the NAACP. They're trying to segregate out black conservatives. I mean, that's what's really outrageous here. My wife, Deneen Borelli, a prominent Tea Party speaker, wanted to speak at the NAACP meeting, and they refused her ability to speak, so they segregated her down to the exhibit hall. And that's what's going on. They're trying to silence conservative voice, black conservative voice, because they're embarrassed of the progressive policies that are failing under President Obama.
And this is the worst kind of racism, in my view, where a wonderful woman such as your wife, and and there have been countless others, are silenced, are mocked, are called names, are treated unpleasantly, putting it mildly, because they're black conservatives, as if all blacks have to be like-minded, which to me is racist.
Well, it's not only racist, but they're trying, it's another establishment. The NAACP is just another establishment where their leaders are trying to hang on to power so they can go to the resorts and hang out with the key politicians, and they're trying to, silence black conservatives who have a message of empowerment, and that's what they were afraid of. And some of the NAACP policies are harmful to the black community. My God, they have a climate justice program that supports President Obama's war on fossil fuels, his war on coal. That's going to increase electricity prices, and that's going to harm blacks who have the lowest disposable income. That's taking money out of their pockets, going to utilities and to gasoline instead of, food, rent, and clothes. It's crazy.
And Tom, not only that, I mean, we have seen the recent videos from Chicago, from Texas, from other places where African Americans are now blasting this president over the border crisis and over the influx of illegal immigrants into this country, and the request for almost $4 billion at a time when the African American community is suffering terribly on just one issue of unemployment, for instance. And they're saying, hey, help us. And of course, in Chicago and other places in the inner cities, but especially Chicago, gun violence and crime and murder. And they're saying, hey, help us. You're a black president. What's going on here? Help us. And they're being very critical of Obama. I guess that must make them racist in the eyes of the NAACP.
Right. All the more reason why they're trying to silence black conservatives' voice at the NAACP. I work for FreedomWorks. Thank God for FreedomWorks, because they had the passion and the interest to rent a room in the same hotel at the Mandalay Bay where Deneen Borelli, my wife, Reverend C.L. Bryant, and other black conservatives are holding a Liberty Summit so that we can bring in blacks to the message of liberty and empowerment, because the NAACP top will not allow this to happen. There's even an NAACP member who's conservative who was unable to speak at the convention here, so she's going to speak at the FreedomWorks panel with my wife and Reverend C.L. Bryant.
And when is the panel taking place?
It's taking place at 2 o'clock in the Mandalay Bay, in the same hotel as the NAACP.
Yeah, and you're in Vegas.
We need to bring the message of empowerment. As you mentioned before, now is the time for blacks really to wake up to the message of real liberty, not the progressive agenda, because it has failed them for how many years? Just think of it.
And Tom, this
failed them for how many years? Just think of it.
And Tom, this I don't know what you want to call it. Maybe you could describe it for me, or put a label on it. This show of sorts of
that
Obama.
Might be dangerous.
No. This show of sorts of Obama and Eric Holder, especially Holder, talking specifically about race. And we're treated differently, and some of the vitriol against the president is race-based, and Obama, they're treating me, they're suing me. Maybe they don't like me. They never did it to George Bush. Maybe there's something different. All this. I don't know if you even want to call it ginning up or revving up. Who? The base? It's not the base. I mean, who? What do they think they're accomplishing? And how dangerous to the United States is it to have the two most important officials and powerful officials in the land, who are both black, speak like this?
Steve, you're absolutely right. It is dangerous, and it's all about the upcoming election. What they really need, the NAACP meeting, is about voter suppression. Unemployment with blacks is 10.7%. Twice that of white Americans. As you mentioned, the crime in Chicago, failing public schools. And what do they want to talk about? Voter suppression. This is a grand distraction. They're trying to distract the black community with this shiny object. That is not true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, I've said this several times in answer to Eric Holder's claim that there's racial animosity on the part of some who are upset with the president or who speak out against the president. Well, I mean, I could say that, you know, some of the blacks who voted for Obama, some of the 95% of blacks who voted for Obama did so because they don't like whites. So what does that mean? Of course, there's some racists who are white, there's some racists who are black, there's some racists who are Hispanic. What does it mean? But when it comes from the mouth of an attorney general and it insinuates what it insinuates, then it takes on some kind of inflated meaning, but there really is none.
Right, and you know, they have a captive audience, and they're trying to keep them in this echo chamber where it's victimization, and it's not true. You could look at blacks now at the top of every, you know, point in society, whether it's sports, entertainment, politics, President Obama, Eric Holder. So the victimization card no longer works. That's why they're trying to silence them. And that's why we have a Tea Party movement. That's why my wife, Denise Borelli, happens to be black. She's there trying to bring the voice of the Tea Party to the black community that desperately needs it.
All right, Tom, great to talk to you. Give regards to your wonderful wife, who I know, and
thanks, Steve.
We can't wait to have both of you back on the
Will
show.
do.
Thank you. Tom Borelli, ladies and gentlemen, senior fellow at FreedomWorks, and of course the FreedomWorks panel, which will be a counterbalance, if you will, to what you can only describe as the racism taking place at the NAACP convention, where, according to Tom, they won't allow black conservatives to speak the way other blacks who are not conservative speak. So what would you call that? If not some sort of racism? Yeah, it's outrageous. I hate to see it, and it's outrageous. It really is. Same is true against conservative Hispanics. Same is true against conservative women, and it's a shame, a real shame. All right, when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, the Malzberg panel will be coming right at you right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV.